those of you who this is their first web design meetup, I just want to say my talk isn't about web design, so please hang around though, because it's relevant to anyone as a human being really. I've talked at these events a couple of times before, and usually it's about, my background's graphic design and web design. I've talked about navigation design, I've talked about website conversion. But really when I thought about what have I learned this year, what I've learned is through involvement in various community projects this year that it is possible to change things when people get together. And I just wondered in the audience if I could have a rough show of hands of who's involved in one way or another in a voluntary type organisation, community, church, sports club, anything like that, in any capacity whatsoever? Right, okay. Well, this might be relevant to you guys, but really everyone in this audience is part of this voluntary group, which is Brisbane Web Design. So hopefully it'll give you some inspiration maybe as to how you can change little bits at a time. This presentation I've actually designed for a client, or part of it, who's a sustainability consultant. And what he wanted to do is, he's just presented this at a conference in Hong Kong yesterday, and it was about encouraging people around the world to see how it's possible to change a community. We've been involved in a few projects on that respect. Okay, so let's have a look. So what we're talking about in this case is trying to change people's habits, trying to make the world a bit more of a sustainable place. And as we know, people in developed nations are wired to this high consumption lifestyle. Have more of everything, more stuff. We all need more stuff, don't we? Yeah, latest Macs, iPads, whatever. But what also is happening is people in all the developing nations want some more of this too, thank you very much. So if they can do it, we can do it. So it's going to become an issue over time, and we all know this. This is just common sense stuff. I'm not teaching you anything new. So what we've got to do is change this wiring. So how do we change this wiring? How do we get people to want to think differently and do things differently to make the world a more sustainable place? Well, one thing we've got, there's a bit of jargon here. I could excuse this because it's from our sustainability consultant, but we've got to change them to thinking carefully about what they're doing, and really, it's not really just about knowing, because we all know this stuff. We know that if we keep using all the world's resources, we're going to run out. You know, that's just common sense. So logic's fine, but it's not going to make you necessarily change your behaviour. It's just too big an issue, really. And also we can try things like rewarding people. Okay, if you change your behaviour here, we'll give you a discount off here. You'll save money on electricity and that sort of thing. They're fine, but they don't really just work by themselves. You can make people guilty. Oh, don't you feel bad using your resources? Don't you think that mobile phone's got all that mercury in it? You should be ashamed of yourself. And you can have experts till they're blue in the face tell you that climate change happens, and someone else says, well, that's just your opinion. So what do you do about it? It's all well and good to tell people. Another thing you can do is legislate. Okay, that can help a lot. You can fine people, you can introduce things like, carbon policies and so on. But what you've got to do is get the voters on side, because governments won't pass legislation unless they think people will vote for them. So the voters count. You all count. And the votes themselves count. So how do you get people to want to vote for you? Their wiring's got to change. You've got to get people to change their mind. Therefore, the laws will change, because the governments will say, hey, they're going to vote for us if we do this. So it's all about getting this rewiring happening. How do you do that? Well, you can actually overwire people's brain. It happens if you focus on what the answer is rather than what the problem is. And that's what we've got to move to. It also happens when we look at what's good, what's happening well now, and how can we think carefully about how to improve what's happening now rather than just trying to address a problem. So a lot of this, getting people to change their mind, is to get them to talk to each other. And there's different ways of describing this. Deductive conversations, there's telling people what to do. Okay, do this, change your habit, do that. But really what you want is what's called inductive conversations, which say, and what do you think about that? And what do you see as the benefits from that? And how will that change your behaviour? So it's about getting people to talk differently and having group conversations as well. Not just telling them what to do. Meaningful conversations, so everyone gets something out of it. It's not just a one-way conversation. And you can have conversations in social networking, Twitter and so on, but they're fine, but they're not going to do it all by themselves. You can just click a button and like, and you've dealt with it and the problem's finished, yeah? No, not really. So what you want is personal, optimistic conversations, things that encourage people to look ahead rather than just be negative and look at it as a problem. So you've got to bring out those aspirations that we all have within us to do the right thing. They're embedded in people, they're in everyone, and they just need our permission to be turned on. So how do we turn them on? Well, you can have a conversation. I can talk to you, and something I might say to you might make you think, aha, yeah, that's a different way of thinking. Maybe I'll do that. Group conversations, even better. You've got more exchange and flow of ideas. You get a community together. You're going to get positive and negative, but hopefully you'll get an overall benefit from the conversation of lots of different viewpoints and drawing those insights out of a lot of people. And without conversations, without people talking to each other, significant change is highly unlikely to happen. So why is that? Because there's a big gap between what you say you want, and I'm as guilty as anyone else. What I say I want is this lovely world, but what I'm doing is I'm still wanting things. I'm buying TVs and phones and whatever. Not necessarily a bad thing, but there's this gap. So what do we do about it? Well, we want to help people close that gap, really. And how do you go about that? There's a bit of science, neuroscience here. I won't go into any detail, but if you experience these sort of things, just whiz through, the way that you talk to people is fair, that you're being listened to, you're being supported, it's a fair process, and that you're empowered to do things, and you're sharing it on I'm thinking the same as you or you. We've got a common vision and we're engaged and we're all in it together. These are all the sort of things that are going to help if you get a group of people together talking to actually make change happen. Rather than just be talking empty words, something might actually happen as a result of this conversation. Autonomy as well. So you're actually saying, if we're in a group here talking about how to improve something, and you stand up and say something, then you've got the right to be listened and the freedom to act if something is decided. And you're not just waiting for the future to happen, you're making it, you're actively making your future. And you want to know that it'll actually be beneficial and something will happen as a result, and it'll be focused, and someone will be guiding the process through clear stewardship. And also, as a combined thing, it's sort of about the self-view. It's about feeling good about yourself, being optimistic that something's going to happen as a result. So these are the sort of conversations that need to happen, usually in groups, to help make things happen and change. So what you have to do is think about what people are doing already. So you're already doing something like maybe, recycling or something. What can you do? You recognise that's a good thing and use that as a building block for more good things that you can build onto that. And that's when the transformative change starts to happen, when people feel confident they're doing these good things, they can do more good things, and they can act on their intuitive affiliation, so you can switch that permission on in their brain that says, yeah, it's good to do this stuff, why not? And there are lots of examples of people trying to change their behaviour using strategies based on this, and these are some examples of things that I've worked on. So I've had the honour of working on a few community projects, and these are some of them, where I've been doing branding design and so on. So Sanford Futures. Sanford's a local community where I live. 30 k's up the road there, 23 actually, not very far. Further, we like people to think we're a long way away, but we're not that far. Now, what happened in Sanford is a group of people got together about 3 years ago. Woolworths wanted to put a big supermarket in there. Various people in Sanford got together, decided that it wasn't in the community's best interest, had conversations like the ones I've just been talking about, and one of the very few communities in Australia, Woolworths didn't win. Okay, IGA won. And then as a result of that, they started thinking, hang on, there's a lot of other things that we'd like to do. So what they did was a few motivated people asked everyone a question. They did a survey and they asked them 4 basic questions. I can't remember the exact wording, but they were things like, what do you really like about the community? What do you want to keep at all costs? What would you happily get rid of? And any ideas for making it better? Just really, really simple questions. Did a survey, and out of that drove all these different streams of activities, things like that sort of devolved into topics like the village identity and development, stuff to do with digital futures, stuff to do with the arts and various things. So a lot of conversations were held over a period of time, and this timeline that we did, I don't know how clear it is on that chart, but it represents this process of conversations over 3 years. So from the very beginning, the supermarket bit is that yellow blob on the left there, to now, where what's happened is not just the conversations have been happening, which is all this stuff at the top. You can't read it, but that just represents lots and lots of consultations along the way with community groups, action groups, liaison with council and so on, and spinning off the bottom, they're all the actions, they're the changes that happened along the way. So it wasn't a matter of just like a typical government thing where you say, oh, you know, we'll have a consultation over 3 years, then we'll do stuff. No, this is making the future happen all the way. So you find something good, you just go ahead and do it, you build on that, and something else good happens. So you can see that the number of coloured dots is increasing as we go, because we're having more and more conversations and more things are actually happening. So people are getting motivated, they're inspiring others, they're talking to others, and they're building on their good behaviours. Here's another thing, this is only quite recently. We decided to try and make Sanford a plastic bag-free zone. And we're getting there. It's not an instant win. We did a campaign with just simple things like door hangers so you remember to take your own bags when you go shopping, having a bag box at the supermarket, so if you've got spare bags, you dump them in there. Someone doesn't have a bag, they don't have to take a plastic one, they can just grab a recycled one that someone else has put in there. And putting little notes in the newspaper and so on, doing posters to help people realise why plastic bags were so dangerous. And if you don't believe me, search plastic bag documentary on YouTube and you'll see a brilliant one about that. So that's the sort of thing we did, was looking at why, you know. So that's the sort of knowledge bit that does part of the job, but the rest of it is about conversations, standing outside the IGA, talking to people when they're coming out with their recycled bags and saying, oh, you're doing a great thing, and that sort of stuff. So we've actually made it happen, and it's gone to something like, I don't know, 80% of people remembering to bring their bag when they go shopping. Another thing that spun out of that process was the need to regenerate some of the land around Sanford. And the team got together, they decided they want to restore the parklands area around the river. They got volunteers to come in with their spades and watering cans and everything like that. And we did this campaign to help motivate people to come along to weeding days and planting days and so on. The thing at the bottom is a great big banner that was strung up at the village entrance. And there's a Facebook page as well that was set up as well. So it's all about encouraging the conversations through Facebook, through just people seeing something in the local press, seeing the sign, talking to a neighbour, what's going on. This is all incremental change that we've been lucky to be involved in. Other things that spun off Creative Sanford, that's getting people who are arty together. And since that was set up, this website's been set up, over 200 local artists have registered on this, who didn't even know each other existed half the time. So we've been able to use, you know, you all are in the industry that enables communication to happen like this much easier than it used to be in the past. Another thing I've been involved in is SEQ Water are doing a survey of the recreational facilities around all the lakes in the whole greater southeast region. So they're doing a series of consultations where they say, come along, have your say, what sort of things do you like to be able to do in the lakes, do you want to have motorsports here or whatever. So we've done a series of posters and adverts and so on just to promote that and get people talking to each other. And they've also used a website in order to capture that information, so you can go along and talk about whatever your local lake is, and using things like, this is just a thing I came across as a result of doing this project, the thing called Bang the Table, and it's a stakeholder engagement website really. It's just another website, but it's designed specifically for capturing conversations and disseminating information when you want to have a community consultation exercise. So anyone who does have a community group who wants a service to do it, that's the sort of thing. So there's more and more of these services around, and you guys could be helping build them as well. There's also social networks. This is run by another local person, Green Street, but it's not just for Sanford, where you sign up, you say I want to try and be more environmentally responsible. You do things like just write down what your electricity bill was, and you can measure it over time and see how you're doing, and you can commit to various things like buying more local products and so on. So people are sort of talking to each other and learning from each other and getting hints and tips and able to change what they're doing. And one more thing, this is quite exciting that we're just starting doing, which we're calling Sanford Connect. It's like doing all this stuff, these conversations, but digitally. So helping enable the conversations by creating a coordinated presence. You can't really see it very clearly there, but what we've got is lots of things coming together. So we've got social media, integrated presence about a community directory, a forum, giving people tools that they can use, like telling them about things like MailChimp and Eventbrite and stuff that will help them organise their local activities for their community group and so on. But all bringing it together, joining all those dots so people can connect and have meaningful conversations. And that's about it. So hopefully that was inspiring.